I'm joined, of course, as ever, by Adam Holz of Plugged In. Hello, Adam.
How are you doing, Andy?
I'm doing all right. I'm happy. I'm seeing you. I feel like I've got some time with my friend, and it's always good.
Well, I always enjoy connecting with you, and I feel like we always have interesting and hopefully engaging conversations. And since I'm one of the ones participating in that, of course I'm biased, but I think that that would be a fair description, at least from my perspective.
Cool. I don't think between the two of us there is much possibility in this millennium of us running out of things to say.
I don't think so, especially, when we review 25 or so new things every week at Plugged In. So
Mm.
even if in some theoretical universe I ran out of things to say, the internet is a wonderful producer of content, and so is Plugged In for that matter. So lots to talk about.
Indeed. In fact, before we go there, I was looking at some birthdays. We do that every day on my weekday
Yeah,
show. And there was a bunch of birthdays. And sometimes I go through, and I think the person, we buy this stuff in, but I think the person who actually writes them, been a change. They're a lot younger. And I'm looking through the actors and actresses, and I'm now thinking, who? I've no idea that. And I go on
right,
Google, see who they are, what have they done? I think, no, nothing. So I always look for the older actors because there's a good chance I actually know who they are,
right.
which is good
Well,
fun.
I hear that. And with Robert Redford dying this week,
Yes.
I did not realize that Scarlett Johansson was like only 11 years old when she did The Horse Whisperer with him. And
Wow.
I read an interview. This is just sort of fun Hollywood insider-ish stuff. There's no great takeaway. Well, maybe a little bit of takeaway. She talked about how no matter what was going on, no matter how busy he was, no matter how stressful the set was, he always made time to be with her, to coach her, to ask her if she needed anything, because it was, if not her first, one of her very first acting
Mhm.
roles. And I thought, man, that's a really great word. Actually, maybe there's more meat here on this bone than I realized. That we're never too important, to not take time to help those who are coming up alongside us and maybe years or decades behind us. I think that is the essence of what we in the church would call discipleship and what the world might call more broadly mentoring or coaching. But just that Robert Redford, who by the time he made that film in the late 80s, early 90s, he was as big as they came, right? And that she just remembered him so fondly, being willing to serve her and to make her feel like she was the only person in the world. And I think with all of the things happening in the world these days that are garnering, deservedly negative headlines, that was a nice story.
I watched the making of The Pacifier, which I can't say
Okay.
it's the best film in the world, but we quite like it as a family. It's a bit of fun, really. But
Yeah.
in the making of the film, they talk about Vin Diesel, and of course, there's a baby in the film, so that generally means you've got two babies,
Right.
twins. And what they said was they could never separate Vin Diesel from the babies. It was like he was kind of the surrogate dad on set. Nobody else
Aw.
got to hold them or look at them. It's like, I'm looking after them. And I love the fact that in all these little video clips you've got of the making of the film, you got Vin Diesel, who is not the dad, caring for
Right.
these two and looking out for these little kids so much. And it was beautiful to see.
And frankly, I'm not sure that Vin Diesel would make my top 10 list of celebrities I would think are most likely to hold the baby on the set,
No.
right? I mean, he's like kind of the consummate tough guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great to hear. And I think maybe there's another larger point here. I'm now just free associating that we live in a time of tremendous turmoil, of deep passion about different beliefs, different ideas, different perspectives. And I think one of the dangers of social media is it shoves us into an us them kind of dichotomy, right? It's like, well, there's people on our side and there's people on the other side. These sorts of stories remind us that we all share a common humanity.
Mm.
And for those of us who are in the Christian faith, we believe we are created in God's image. And that means that we all have dignity, we all have value, we all have meaning and purpose, even if we have deep, deep, deep disagreements with somebody. And so I think relating to people from that perspective, that really reflects how God has created us. And, I think both of these stories, I think that when we see kindness, when we see sacrifice, even if somebody is not a Christian, I think those values reflect the fact that we were created by a God who loves us and who sacrificed for us, and that is his nature as well. So again, plenty of tough stories in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination and school shootings here in the United States, and just hard things,
Mm.
right? But there's reason for hope, and that hope really is grounded in Jesus too. So there you go.
Amen to that. I like these little things that we do. But I remember watching a film. One I thought, wow, Vin Diesel's doing the pacifier. He's doing this, Navy SEAL guy. He's got to look after his family. And then fair play to him. He got into the roles, and some of it's quite silly. But I just love the care and compassion that you saw. I remember hearing about Tom Cruise at one point. Was he a good dad, bad dad? And somebody was on set. Tom Cruise was across the way. His
Yeah.
kids saw him and just bolted across everybody, ducked under
Yep.
security, massive hug with their dad. And they said, I don't care what anybody's writing or reading. Those kids love their dad. I don't care.
Right.
You can't
No,
fake that.
you can't fake that. That's exactly right. And hopefully, we're people who exude something real, the aroma of Christ, of someone who loved and who cared and who sacrificed. So yeah, that's what we bring to Plugged In. We try to think about entertainment from that bigger Christian lens that helps us to make sense of the ideas and the worldviews that we see there.
Because the thing is, entertainment, films, music, books, games, whatever, they are all part of the media, which is a massive,
Yeah.
massive word. It's 5 letters and it's enormous, really.
Yeah.
It's just like so much. But actually, that entertainment side of things, whether you want to think it as I don't know, information, documentaries, or just complete crazy Guardians of the Galaxy nonsense,
Right.
it all works in one way to help in something or not. But
Yep.
actually, that's part of the world we live in, and it's always going to reflect the world. It's going to push the boundaries. Of course, it is. That's
Yep.
how you make the money. But actually, it's good to have all these different things, and we need to understand not just our impact on Hollywood, but actually Hollywood's impact on us, which
Yep.
is why, nicely bring it back around, how does Plugged In actually do that and help us to engage better with
Yeah.
entertainment in the loosest form?
Yeah. We want to look at all kinds of things, and we want to make observation on what we see. And we try to do that pretty objectively. Hopefully when we see a movie, when we watch a TV show, the information that we're recording about the content that is there, it's as accurate as we can make it. And I'm not going to say that we never make a mistake, because, every now and then you do miss something, but we strive to really give you an accurate representation of the content you can expect to find. And then, we're not shy about saying we're coming at this from a Christian perspective, from a discipleship perspective. And so we want to think about where this lines up with the Christian faith, and where maybe a particular message or bit of content is at odds with it. And I was talking with a niece last night a little bit. My daughter was talking with her on the phone, and they were talking about the show The Summer I Turned Pretty. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just talk about this a little bit, because I inserted myself into their conversation on the phone. Because I think it's largely a worldview that's pretty problematic. It treats sex pretty casually, and there are no consequences, and it romanticizes a lot of bad behavior. And there are some likable characters, and it's well written. I get why people, and why young women especially, are engaged with it. But I say, yeah, here's an opportunity. Let's talk about that. And I know about that because of Plugged In, right? This is not a show that would have been on my radar apart from Plugged In, but there's a new season out, and we're in the middle of that. So we are doing our best to keep track of each new episode as they drop weekly, and keep you up to speed with that as well.
So in terms of some reviews, where would you like to go and just do
Yeah.
what it is you do so well?
Yeah, I want to start someplace a little bit different today. We have a review that I actually edited the review this morning. it may not even be live yet by the time well, it should be hopefully published shortly. It's called Borderlands 4, and Borderlands is a video game. And this is a huge action franchise. And you can sort of think of it as imagine dropping superhero movies, vampire movies, horror movies, monster movies, and a bunch of guns in a blender and making a smoothie or a chunky, maybe might be a better way to describe it. That's what you get with Borderlands 4. It's a little bit cartoonish. There might be some very, very broad similarities with Fortnite, but this is a hardcore M-rated game, and an M stands for mature, which is basically the video game equivalent of, a restricted film. And basically, this is a game to go blast the living daylights out of everything. And, it's a gory, messy, bloody, violent, profane game. And I think especially in the wake of the shooting last week, I want to be careful not to clutch my pearls and say, oh, it's the video games are horrible, horrible, horrible. It's all their fault, because we know that the shooter was a part of a gaming community. And yet, I think it's worth asking the question, not necessarily of that situation in particular, but just more broadly, if we have a steady diet of imagery where we've got a gun in our hands and we're blowing, things to chunks, if you do that 20 hours a week for years on end, what does it do to you? Right? Now, thankfully, the vast, vast majority of people who enjoy those games are not going to go out and become shooters. A few that may be in the mix, and I would ask the question, have those games played at least a small role in desensitizing them to violence, right? Are you able to pull that trigger because you've conditioned yourself to pulling the trigger in a virtual environment for so long that you're just numb to it? And so I think it's fair game to ask about video games and ask, are we engaging in stories and images that are ultimately really desensitizing to us, because it's just all about blowing stuff, apart.
One story, I don't think we shared this last week. I was reading up, and this was the one that really chilled me of all the stuff that's gone on. This was one I thought, because I'm more interested in kind of wider society. And it was a guy who was involved in, is it MMA? Is that a fighting thing?
Mixed martial arts.
That's the one. Thank you. And he commented on it. Okay, there was a few expletives in some of the stuff, but he's basically saying what really scared him was he saw the thing and he felt nothing.
Yeah.
And he instantly realized, from what I could see from this fairly short post, of all the stuff I've watched on TV, or perhaps games, he didn't really say what. All of a sudden, I'm watching death effectively, or just moments after, and thinking, what's the big deal? And he caught himself, which was why I was fascinated by it and kind of I find it quite chilling, when he said, but hang on, someone's just died and I don't feel anything. Why is that? And he obviously references some of the stuff he watches or doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think that was really telling of the society we live in, especially when you're talking about the gaming, of how much can we say it doesn't. If I eat, really bad, unhealthy food every single day, 3 times a day, I know it's going to change my body one way or another. I might be fine to my mid-20s.
And I can actually tell you exactly how it will change it. If you need photographic or, anecdotal evidence, I'll stand up for that one.
No, that's fine. But we know it's going to change us. And then it takes ages to come undone. But if we're watching stuff or taking in music, I mean, words, they do matter, which is why we're 3-point pure as a station. It's going to affect us. The question then is not so much will it affect us, but how much does it affect us, and how much do we need to be cautious of that?
Yeah, and I think that it affects us in a couple of ways at the very least. We're talking about being desensitized, and I resonate with that story you told, because I think we have all become conditioned, even if we're just talking about the news, like forget even talking about violent movies or things that we would choose as entertainment. I think we have all seen enough imagery of real world violence on the news that the very fact that it comes through a screen, there's an unreality to it, and we're just hardened to it, whether it's, fighting in the Middle East or in, Russia and Ukraine, and we see these images, and And you should feel something if you were really alive in a good way as a human, but you don't. So I think that there's an unreality there. And I don't think we're meant to process that, right? These are not images that we were ever designed to see. God did not make us this way. So I think that's great. Great observations. There's a gentleman in Pennsylvania here in the United States named Walt Mueller, and he says of entertainment, it's a map and it's a mirror. It's a mirror in that it reflects where we're at as a society, but it's also a map in that it points to where we're going and it reinforces certain cultural values as well. So, just a few thoughts. And actually, I have one other thought. Do I have time for one more?
Of course you do.
So, on one hand, I think maybe these images blunt us or numb us. And there's another way that sometimes our emotions are engaged in ways that we don't think critically very well. Again, I probably talked about this before, but the film $1 Million Baby with Clint Eastwood is about euthanasia. And this boxer played by Hilary Swank ends up as a quadriplegic, and she begs him to pull the plug on her because she can't stand the thought of living. And it's a really emotionally effective movie because it seems like, yeah, you know what she's asking for here is really reasonable. But what we have is an emotional argument against the value of life, that ultimately she is still making an argument for death that runs counter to the fact that our lives continue to have value. And again, I'm not trying to say that having that ailment wouldn't be very, very difficult. And I have no idea what that would feel like. But that's a great example of how a movie can work on us emotionally at an almost subterranean level, changing the way we think about issues. So again, at Plugged In, those are the sorts of discernment issues that we grapple with, hopefully on, a regular basis. And we want to encourage and equip you as a family to do the same thing.
Adam, thank you. Just remind us where people can get all of the amazing reviews that you guys do.
Yeah, they are at pluggedin.com, and we are a part of Focus on the Family. Come check us out. We would love to have you engage with us. And we actually are doing more and more stuff on our YouTube channel as well. So you can come see us there too.
Adam, thank you.
You bet.
Did you know that at Pure 24/7 Radio, we also offer advertising? Advertising really does work. Let's face it, you're listening to this. Want to know more? Well, just go to pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/advertising, and you can get everything you want and more there.